Hello my pretties, it's GenX Granny here again. Today I want to talk about a serious leak that most people have in their budget. Now, if you're on a good income, a good wage, or you're rich, you don't need to worry about this. But for the rest of us that work full-time or part-time and have to watch our money and the cost of living, this is going to be some very important information that I'm sure some of you have already worked out, but for those that haven't, this is for you. Now, I'm going to be talking about why you shouldn't buy takeaway food and takeaway coffee on the days that you're working. If you make a habit of this, if that's how you're feeding yourself and keeping yourself alert, then you're going to lose a lot of money over the year. I'm going to crunch some numbers with you now. Now, let's assume that you're working full time, you're working 5 days a week. You get 4 days off a year. So let's just assume that you're working 48 weeks in the year. Now, in Australia, if you buy a coffee at the moment in 2023, it costs roughly around $5. Now, a lot of them will cost more if you're getting an iced coffee or you're getting something fancy. You could be up for $7 or $8. So yeah, the average coffee at the moment is $5. So I'm going to assume we're talking about $5 coffees here, okay? If you spend $5 a day just buying one coffee a day while you're at work to keep awake, you're spending $25 a week. That doesn't seem like a lot of money, but that total over 48 weeks adds up to be $1,200. So if you're on minimum wage, let's say you've got a little bit of overtime in there as well, you're probably making around $1,100. That means you're clearing roughly around $900, perhaps a bit less. So if you're buying a coffee every day for $5, you're working a bit over 1 week of every year just to pay for the coffees that you're having at work. If you're getting takeaway food at work, okay, the days that you're working, you're having your lunch, you're going and buying takeaway food. Now, at the moment, because of the price of food, I'm finding that a lot of takeaway dishes are between $12 and $20. It's not easy to get something decent for $10 anymore. But I'm going to pretend that you're only spending $10 a day on your lunch. Over a week, that's $50. Over a year, that's $2,400. So that's 2 weeks work, a bit over 2 weeks work if you're on minimum wage. So you're working for 2 weeks of every year just to pay for the lunches that you're having at work. Now, if you're adding a coffee onto that, we're talking $3,600, okay? So let's just say we've got $5 for a coffee each day, $10 of food, $75 a week. That's $3,600. That is a holiday overseas. That's a holiday to Thailand or Bali from Australia. Now, if your food is $15, which is pretty much what you're actually going to be closer to paying in Australia at the moment, you're paying $75 a week. So that's $3,600 just on your lunch. If you want to add the coffee onto that, that's $4,800 a year you're spending on one coffee a day and your lunch at $15. Now, that doesn't include what money you might be spending in the morning on your way to work on a bite to eat because you haven't got it together to make breakfast, or perhaps you get 2 coffees. You get a coffee on the way to work and one for lunch. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars a year. You're working for your employer, potentially for up to a month, just to pay for the food and drink you have to keep going at work. That's ridiculous. Now, I'm going to explain to you a solution to this. Now, you do have to make a tiny little lifestyle adjustment. If you're like me, the last thing I feel like doing in the morning is making my lunch. The last thing I feel like doing when I get home is preparing dinner. I really can't be bothered. If I'm working full time, I have very little energy left around work, and I'm assuming that there's other people out there like that. So what I do, this has really worked for me, is I allocate 2 hours of every weekend, usually on a Sunday, and I make a week's worth of iced coffees because I drink iced coffee. I drink iced coffee in the winter and I drink it in the summer. That's just me. If you prefer hot coffees, you should probably make it in the morning before work. There's all sorts of insulation bottles these days that keep your drinks hot or cold for several hours. So they're well worth buying and keeping on hand for your morning drinks. Your coffee, your juices, whatever, you're normally spending $10, $15 on, make it at home on the Sunday, stick it in the fridge, leave it there, and just each day put it in a insulated container and take it to work. That way you can have your iced coffee or your hot coffee and you haven't paid anything for it. Now, I do a big cook up in that 2 hours. So I make my coffees, my iced coffees for the week. I also make 2 big meals. Now, I don't make them small enough for like 1 or 2 servings. I make them big enough for 6 to 8 people, and then I put them in containers and I stick them in the fridge. I use some of them at work and I use some of them at night after work to have for dinner, so I'm not cooking. Now, this saves me not only all the cooking every day, it saves me about $75 a week in takeaway food. It saves me about $3,500 in takeaway food over a year. Just that little bit of organisation on the weekends. Sometimes it only takes me an hour if I do some quick, easy recipes. Other times it might take me a bit closer to 3 hours, but it's all well worth it because I've got all my lunches ready to go. I've got all my drinks ready to go. I've got my meals for after work ready to go. And there's usually, I've usually made more than I need. So with the extra meals, put them in the freezer. Make sure you write the date and what it is on the top of the container. You'd be surprised how, quickly time can pass with stuff in the freezer. So you want to know how long ago you made it. That way, if you ever go away for a weekend, which means, you get home, you're hopped in the car, you're gone, you get home late on Sunday night, the last thing you want to do is spend an hour or two cooking, like who could be bothered with that? But if you've been putting your leftover meals or the extra ones that you've made in the freezer, you've got another 5 or 10 meals in there to use. So yeah, that's why I'm saying make sure you freeze, the extra portions, because there will come a time when you actually need them. So it does help to have a bit of extra freezer space. Some people that I've known will do one big cook up a month and put it in a large freezer, making 4 to 6 different meals so they don't get bored. I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't have enough freezer space to do it once a month, so I'm doing it once a weekend. And you know what? I've saved nearly $5,000 in the last year doing this. So I want you to think about it. I want you to work out how much money you're spending on takeaway, how much money you're spending on takeaway coffees as well as lunch. Add it all up over a year, and I think you'll be quite shocked. All right, guys, good luck with that.